Well, at a deep, unconscious psychoanalytic level, I've come to the conclusion that the deep desire of an NI dominant to be understood has to do with, you may expect it, early childhood and the relationship to the mother. Now, if you've been following my video I put lately, you know that this is a topic that I've become more interested in than ever, and no doubt this is partly to do with my psychoanalytic training, giving me lots of new ideas, new angles to look at these various issues. And you know, I was saying that that the INFJ, I was focusing on the INFJ, likely experiences early on a feeling of not being fully understood by their parents. And they, as a young child, they find it difficult to accept as loving parents that don't understand them. I think some of that lack of understanding is intuitive. You know, the child is very young, but we know that young children are extremely intuitive. And so there is certainly a way in which a parent may feel like they do all that they can to make the child feel loved, and yet it doesn't quite register with the child. One of the ways in which this can happen is if the child doesn't actually feel understood. If NI is developed, let's say in the first year of life, as I think is the case, there's going to be plenty of opportunities after that for the child to feel misunderstood, particularly if we consider, as I think is quite clear, that NI is a rare function, and so it's very unlikely that both parents, that one parent at least will be an NI dominant, which of course would be the surest path towards making the child feel understood. It's just how it is, and in a sense, parents not being NI dominants are not really at fault for not making the child feel as understood as he could, in those cases where he doesn't. It's kind of just one of those little tragedies of early childhood, you know, the mini traumas that we have all experienced. You know, it's a universal human experience. And otherwise, we'd all be perfectly mentally healthy in every way. Of course, we're not. So, but this experience of being misunderstood, of course, leads to the, you know, and I've talked about that a lot, so I'm not going to return to it in detail, the overblown ego ideal, which also means demanding excessively tyrannical superego, harsh self-judgments, high levels of guilt and shame in INFJs a lot of the time. At a deeper psychoanalytic level, though, again, we're talking of levels. So when we're talking of levels, and you know, when you train yourself to think psychoanalytically, this is really important to grasp, is that you can say two different things that are both true, but one thing is true at a deeper level and the other thing that is true at a more superficial level. In fact, in that particular way of talking, the more superficial level is not shallow. It's not a shallow way of articulating it. It's only more superficial in the sense that it's less unconscious. So it's closer to literally the surface of consciousness. More superficial in this sense, not shallow, okay? But of course, the more you become interested in the unconscious, the more you come to realize, wow, okay, like there's something that is not obvious, there's something that is not conscious, and the unconscious itself has many strata, all right? And you never quite know when you've hit rock bottom. In fact, probably no one is quite able to do that. But at a deeper unconscious level, there seems to be, in the repair fantasy of NI dominance, if you like, there's a connection between the desire to be understood and the repair fantasy, because it's obvious that the repair fantasy of anyone is ultimately driven by a desire to repair themselves. And so when the desires is directed at other people, it is a projection. And sometimes it's a good projection if the repair fantasy is not mediated in quote-unquote pathological ways, but it's still a projection. The person is always seeking to repair themselves through repairing other people. There's a deep relationship, unconscious relationship, between this desire to repair other people, that is oneself, and the desire to be understood by other people. Because the desire to be understood by other people, from this perspective, is just a replay of the desire to be understood by your mother, by your parents. And at a deeper level than this, it's the desire to recover the ideal, perfect conditions of intrauterine life, of the life in the womb, where, if you like, understanding is immediately shared, is perfect, and there's no need for interpretation, there's no misfiring, there's no frustration, there's no castration. Everything is just immediately heaven-like realization of need. So the fusion of understanding, to speak in a metaphorical sense, is just perfect. And I is driven by a phantasmatic vision to recover that. In the repair, the desire for repair, of course, we have an expression of it, but the desire to be understood is also a desire to repair oneself. Your desire to repair yourself, you desire to be repaired, but in this desire to be repaired, there's also the need for the validation that your repair is noticed by other people. It's like if you can only realize a certain amount of self-repair. So imagine you become more, you become much more sort of alert to how you work, to your value. You become more legitimate existentially in your own eyes. There's still going to be a point where you want the validation of other people to kind of ratify it. And that is also, at a deep unconscious level, it is a movement toward repair. And it has to do, at the end of the day, with the fusion with the mother. It is what drives it is what drives the Life Project. It's what makes the anti-dominance life productive. Frustration, realization, frustration, realization. You know, it's a never-ending process. Okay guys, don't forget that you can support me on Patreon. You get cool perks if you do, like access to our Discord server, access to all my bonus videos. There's now a solid back catalog of deep dives into various topics. The last one was on NI, mysticism and magic, a 30-minute video on that topic. If you're interested, you should definitely join my Patreon. It also happens to help me massively and helps keep the channel going. It's not easy to keep the channel going, so please consider supporting me. A few bucks a month or a few bucks a year, and you get access to all these cool things. There's also my 2 books on the INFJ. If you want a deep understanding, internal world of the INFJ, go to the Ecstatic Soul, my first book on the INFJ, available below. And on the INFJ's external world, the Infinite Soul, which is its sequel, available at the first link below in the description box. Definitely, if you want a deep understanding of INFJs, you cannot do without these books. Get them, and talk to you tomorrow, guys. Bye-bye.